Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the proud father of 3 King's Academy students and our guest speaker for tonight, His Royal Highness Prince Talal bin Mohammed.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wassalamu alaikum jami'an. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alia Tuqan. And there are a lot of thank yous here tonight. First of all, for Ma'ali Abu Tariq over there for putting this beautiful evening together. But the truth is, behind every great man, there's an even greater woman. Tariq, Rudy, well done. It's a beautiful evening. Thank you so much. وكيف تحملتي مش عارف لحد الآن يعني. I need to say also a very important word about my dear friend, Karim Qawar. And he's said all there can be to say, but we're all very grateful for your leadership and for your encouragement and your guidance. And even though you are being succeeded, you will never be replaced. And we're grateful for everything that you've done for us. And from here, I would like to congratulate all of you. Thanks to your kindness, to your support, your generosity, we have raised a total tonight of, I believe, 1 million Jordanian dinars or 1.4 million US dollars. So this is for you, which translates to scholarships for 50 students, 50 students will be going to King's thanks to all of you. On a personal point of view, I would like to thank members of my family who are here tonight. They have no direct contact with King's, and they just came here tonight to support the event and to support me. So I'm very grateful to my cousin Sharif Shakir bin Zaid and his wife Maysam, who are over there. And my cousin Farid Irshad and his beautiful wife Haifa, and my cousin Yasmina Irshad, who bought 12 tickets and came all the way from London to support this event. So I'm very, very grateful. Most of all, most of all, the person who deserves the most thanks here tonight is our beloved King, His Majesty King Abdullah, for many things, for everything, for keeping us safe from our enemies, for keeping our country at peace, from allowing us to live the life that we lead, where all around us we see terrible things. But in this particular case, I would like to thank His Majesty for King's. It bears his name and is honored to do that. His Majesty's vision and his leadership and his generosity, amongst many gifts he's given Jordan, he's given us a world-class academic institution. And all of us and our children and our grandchildren, inshallah, will always be in his debt. Now, when Bassem first asked me to address you tonight, I asked him, what would you like me to speak about? Typically, Bassem goes, anything you like. Yani not realizing the fact that this made my life more difficult than easier. So knowing full well that I would be addressing an audience that is both highly educated, highly aware, and thus coming tonight with equally high expectations. So I sat with Bassem and my beautiful wife Rida, and I proposed various topics, things I know about, I'm used to talking about, all concerning the current events in our region, Daesh and Syria and Iraq and Iran and Palestine. Needless to say, all of these suggestions were promptly vetoed by my wife. Then Bassem very politely and very sensibly pointed out the following, that he wanted this evening to be a happy one, a celebration of Kings, and for everyone to be in a wonderful mood and to have the best time. To speak about the sad times that we are witnessing in our region would certainly affect that. And I completely agree. Our charming hosts have gone to great lengths to offer everyone here an unforgettable evening, and that is exactly what we're going to have, inshallah. ليش عم بتزقف لحالك يا زلمة؟ عم بتزقف لك نحن. He also, equally politely, asked me to keep it brief. So, in keeping with all of these requests, I will try tonight to present you with what I call a mini-skirt speech, which... could tell he was laughing. Which means a mini-skirt speech, which means short enough to be interesting, but long enough to cover the essentials. So please bear with me, and if by the end of my remarks I have left you with just one small thing to think about, then I will be a very happy man. As we are all here on this beautiful night to support education, I thought that I would celebrate your tremendous generosity and your profound commitment by addressing the subject of education, or more precisely, a certain aspect of it, and I believe quite possibly the most important one. In Arabic, we describe education with two very different, but in reality inseparable words, al-tarbiyah wa ta'lim. Now, at-ta'lim is straightforward enough. It can be defined quite simply as academic instruction, learning from lectures and from books. And although all of us here understand what at-tarbiyah means, in reality it's not so easy to define. In fact, I could not find a satisfactory translation of al-tarbiyah in any other language. So this is how I choose to define it. At-tarbiyah tatbiq al-akhlaq. I'm going to say that one more time. At-tarbiyah tatbiq al-akhlaq. In English, I would call it applied ethics, with the emphasis on applied. Or in other words, it is the cultivation, the formation of character. By character, I don't mean personality in the common sense. I mean the collective qualities, both mental and moral, that distinguish a person. In other words, moral strength. This is the willingness to accept responsibility for one's own life, and in doing so, attempt to cancel out some of the multitudes of one's personal deficiencies. It is the arena of combat in the Jihad al-Akbar, the greater jihad, that pitiless, unrelenting, moment-by-moment struggle against our lower selves and our unworthy impulses and desires. It is also, in each individual, the great hope of society as a whole, and the very foundation stone of our universal humanity. As the philosopher Heraclitus put it, a man's character is his fate. It is worth repeating, a man's character is his fate. Every time. This is brutal and unforgiving, yes, but no less true for it. Too many people see the better things and approve, but follow the worst. Others are experts at practicing virtue, but at a distance. For example, we all of us praise discipline, but it's quite another thing to submit to it. I have read that all people have three characters: that which a person shows, that which a person has, and that which a person thinks one has. And what could be easier than deceiving ourselves? For what each of us wishes, each of us believes to be true. This is not entirely unexpected, as the world tends to reward the appearance of merit over merit itself. Far too many people want to be somebody, but who amongst them actually wants to grow? The weak-minded resemble a feather pillow, bearing the marks of the last person who sat on them. Because those who stand for nothing will fall for anything. But fortune alone will not make men, it will merely unmask them. There are some who say that a person's true nature, their character, is revealed by alcohol. In vino veritas, as the Romans said. In wine is truth. Maybe this is true. Others have said that character is revealed by adversity, by life's difficult moments. That may also be true. But I have noticed that character may most often be revealed in life's small moments and not simply its great ones. For instance, how we treat those who can do absolutely nothing for us. Too often, it is not crisis, but the 1,000 cuts of day-to-day living that wear us out, all of us. It is said that all men lead lives of quiet desperation, and for many of us, the simple act of getting out of bed in the morning requires a small act of courage. I like Abraham Lincoln's test of character best. He said, "Nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power." I like this because I know this to be true. At the height of the 1990 Kuwait crisis, my late uncle, King Hussein, said to me, "I don't think that I will be able to stop this war, but at least I hope that on the last day, when I stand before God, I will be able to say that I tried my best." And he did try his very best. Because this is what a hero is, a person who does what he can. Only a mediocre person is always at his best. Sayyidina Hussein, Allah yarhamu, for me and for all of those who knew him and loved him, always reminded me of Lord Chesterfield's advice to his son. This 18th century English diplomat, Lord Chesterfield, who was once described as the politest man in Europe, wrote, "Gentleness of manner with firmness of mind is a short but full description of human perfection." And I'm going to read that one more time. And of those of you who knew Sayyidina, you will understand. Gentleness of manner with firmness of mind is a short but full description of human perfection. As for us lesser men, I would like to quote to you from a contemporary of William Shakespeare, the English playwright Ben Jonson, who observed, "They say princes learn no art truly but the art of horsemanship. The reason is the brave beast is no flatterer. He will throw a prince as soon as he will throw his groom." And I can tell you Jonson was right. صح فالح. As the late Habis al-Majali once put it to me, "اللي ما يقع ما هو خيال." In light of this, I have noticed that it's not for nothing that in Arabic, the words for groom, sayis, and the words for politics, as-siyasa, come from the same root. Yet without character, without moral strength, we as individuals and as a nation are lost, as the truth of life will be forced on us very quickly by the enemy who is always present, inside of us and out. Because nature has decreed that what cannot be defended shall not be defended. The world is as it is, and there is no history that ends in love. There can be no good in this world without a strong will, as a weak person will only lead to unreliability. This unreliability means that if and when such a person tries to do good, their lack of character will invariably lead them not to see it through to the end. Such an outcome is in itself terrible. It's a terrible, terrible thing, because it betrays all of those who rely and all of those who depend on the accomplishment of that good. So I believe it is always better to have a weak man as an enemy than as a friend. Because after all, what is character but the determination of one's own faith? And what is one's fate but the illustration of one's character? Then how best can a person achieve moral strength? Best secure for themselves and for their children the necessary force of character to lead them to the full realization of their potentialities. I can humbly offer 2 suggestions. The first suggestion is that God sees and knows everything that we do and everything that we think, and that we will all of us, sooner than we may think, stand before him to give account for ourselves. But that all we need to do is to ask him for his help, for his guidance, and we shall receive it. From this blessing comes moral strength. My second suggestion is the ruthless and unrelenting pursuit of excellence in everything that we think, in everything that we say, in everything that we do. Aristotle put it best when he wrote, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit. It is not an act, but a habit. From this habit comes character. This is perhaps why, in Arabic, we describe education with 2 words, al-tarbiyah wa ta'lim, and not just one, because character without knowledge is weak, and knowledge without character is dangerous. For we Arabs, I have always felt that the 2 values that we honor and prize the most, the greatest virtues, if you will, are courage, al-shaja'ah, and generosity, al-karam. And what is courage but generosity? The willingness to give your everything, everything you are and everything you will ever be, to your God and to your people. With this in mind, I would like to finish with 2 last examples, which I have joined together under the heading I call Obedience to the Unenforceable. By this, I mean that the greatness of a people lies not in its blind obedience to laws, but rather by living according to its noblest traditions, when they are not obligatory. The first example, which I have named the disease, is a passage from the Muqaddimah of Abdurrahman ibn Khaldun, which was written 638 years ago, in 1377, but is as fresh and as relevant as though it had appeared in this morning's newspaper. And Ibn Khaldun wrote, "The Arabs had found themselves in possession of a glory and a prosperity which had never been the lot of any other people. Surrounded by the goods of this world and given over to pleasure, they extended themselves on the couch of softness. The Arab people forgot the life of the desert and lost the qualities which had enabled them to conquer power and to subjugate the nations. Nothing remained of the simplicity of the first age of religious enthusiasm, nor of the manly customs which had formed them in the desert. All of their qualities became softened, including the edge of their swords. Their ruler was no longer willing to accept capable leaders who might become his rivals. To tame their turbulent spirit, he relied on mercenary armies formed of foreign slaves. With such troops, he humbled the Arabs, the founders of empire, the champions of the faith. He destroyed in their minds the memory of their past glories. Authority passed into the hands of slaves who themselves mounted the throne and issued their sovereign commands. Finally, the real Arabs disappeared from the world, as the nations who preceded them had disappeared and as their successors themselves will disappear. This was written 638 years ago. Now, the second example, which I have named the antidote, and is my final comment for tonight, you'll be happy to hear, is a personal story. In 1990, I commanded a company in a special forces regiment. I had amongst the young officers in my company a bright, cheerful, handsome, and enthusiastic lieutenant from the north of Jordan. He was also extremely competent, which unfortunately for him meant that I would often rely on him, assigning him more tasks than I did the others, as I knew he would get them done and get them done right. It also happened that this young man was born and raised in a Beit Sha'ar, in which his parents still lived. The other young officers would sometimes tease him about this, especially when it rained. And I always found this to be in bad taste. But my young friend always defended himself and his family's home with confidence and with calmness. He never raised his voice nor allowed the others to provoke him into losing his temper. Once, when we were out on company maneuvers, we found ourselves near this young man's home. Naturally, he invited us there, and I met his proud parents, and typically, even though his family had very little, they showed us true Arab hospitality. As we sat, I asked my friend how he had managed to study without electricity and having to fulfill all of the endless duties demanded by this very difficult way of life. And this is what he told me. He told me that when he was at a government school, he would hold the plow in one hand and his school book in the other. At night, he would go down to the highway and he would read under the street lamps. He graduated from school with high enough marks to attend Yarmouk University. And from there, he qualified to attend the Royal Military Academy. He eventually realized his dream of becoming an officer in the Hashemite Arab army and finally to gain a place in one of our best units. 25 years later, I still think about him often. I do so because his story constantly reminds me of why I love our blessed Jordan and its proud and courageous people with all of my heart and all of my being. As many of us here today, I would gladly give my all to a people such as ours, because they deserve our all. We're a small country, but we bow to God alone. We're not wealthy, but we take infinite pride in our generosity, in your generosity, in our hospitality. To have lived and to have served along such men as this, such as the young man I described to you, men of honor, men of character, men of self-respect, simply reconfirms to me what I have always known, that to have been born a Jordanian is to have won the first prize in the lottery of life. Thank you very much. And now, dinner is served.